Good morning. Welcome to CSLDallas Science of Mind class. I'm Dr. Petra Weldis. Happy Labor Day. Hope you're having a fabulous weekend wherever you are, whatever you're doing. We're here as usual. Huge, massive shout out to Dr. Tracy Brown for being here on the Sundays when I normally take August off, and usually I go away. With everything going on here, I got to be behind the scenes for most of the month, which was super fun. And I seldom get to hear Tracy talk. So that was also super fun. It was really, really great. And thank you to all the volunteers who have helped so far. And yep, you'll be hearing about it. We have lots more to do, but not today. Today is Labor Day. Today is the weekend of holidays. So we're not doing any moving or any of those kinds of things today. All right. So Tracy left me a lovely note that started out the encouraging message. I love that, the encouraging message. This is on page 119 as we are continuing on this chapter of what is our relationship, our understanding, what is the process of the science of mind and how we take it up in our lives, what does it mean, all the fabulous things that we've learned about the nature of reality, and how do we actually live it? How do we actually understand it? So I love this, the encouraging message. So Science of Mind is intended to be a liberation theology. It is intended to be a theology, a philosophy of freedom. The only plan, if you'll recall, way back to the beginning when we first started on this round of the book, the only plan for us is a plan for freedom. And so this is an encouraging message that we can free ourselves. We can free ourselves from bondage. Primarily, of course, that starts with the bondage of limitation in consciousness, which then begins to translate as freedom in our lives, personally, in our families, in our society, really developing all of the ways in which we can experience that freedom. So let's begin. This whole paragraph is just chock full. The encouraging message of all of this is, and of course, italics or bold, all caps is really important. No matter what may be in the subjective state of our thought, the conscious state can change it. If this were not true, we would be doomed to forever repeat the patterns of our childhood, of our past. We would never grow out of social norms that are no longer acceptable. Nothing would ever change. We would simply continually, habitually repeat over and over and over again the same. Of course, I don't know about you, but I look back on my life and I think, oh, that is a repeat of a previous pattern. Oh, there it is again. Oh, there it is again. Oh, there it is again. Right? And we see that personally, and we see that culturally, and we see that in humanity as a whole. But the encouraging message is that the conscious state can change it. The challenge is that what shall we say? It's not as easy as it sounds, I guess, is the challenge, right? It's not as easy as it sounds. It's not, oh, I'm going to think another thought. I'm going to say an affirmation and everything will be fine. No. It is the diligent process of rewiring our brains, right? Neuroscience is teaching us that this, which we have taught for 100 years, which New Thought is known, and lots of spiritual traditions have known for thousands of years, that we can actually make this change. And so fundamentally, this using the conscious state to change it, I love this next piece. This is what treatment does. Spiritual mind treatment is the act and art and science of inducing belief, which means that it is you're using conscious, directive thought. Let's not get hung up on the word thought, right? conscious, directive use of our conscious mind to diligently work to believe something new, to embody something new. And it is in the process of that embodiment that we begin to shift what's in our subjective state, what's in our subjective thought. And as we do that, something new is beginning to be the author of our lives. Through the most direct method imaginable, this is how it's done: by consciously knowing that there is no inherited tendency toward limitation, no race, suggestion operating through subjectivity, nothing in, around, or through us that believes in or accepts limitation in any way, shape, manner, or form. Okay, so this, when we talk about our spiritual mind treatments or we talk about spiritual work, this is the classic use of denial. Not denying of the experience, because it's a real experience. We are actually having the experience, but denying that there is a spiritual reality behind it. Denying that this is the spiritual truth of us. Denying that it has to be this way. Denying that there is something holding it in place, right? So when we say that there is no inherited tendency towards limitation, what we're saying is we don't accept the idea that limitation can be inherited, regardless of whether it's physical or cultural or family. We don't accept that as the spiritual truth. No race suggestion operating through subjectivity means we deny our unconscious biases as truth. And by denying them, we make space for us to tell ourselves, oh, wait, but this is the truth. Nothing in, around, and through us that believes in or accepts limitation in any way, shape, manner, or form. It's not the spiritual truth that there's a glass ceiling for me because I'm a woman. I don't care what the condition is. Do you see? It's the denial that there's a spiritual truth behind the idea of a glass ceiling. There may be an experience, but there's nothing holding it in place from that ultimate reality. And then we do not stop there. This is only half the treatment. The conscious state must now provide a higher contemplation, a spiritual realization. So this is why spiritual mind treatment is different than just purely affirming, right? I'm not just affirming I can do anything I want. I'm not just affirming nothing can stand in my way as a woman. I can affirm that, and then I can certainly see lots of evidence that that's not true. Lots of ways in which the glass ceiling has played out. But it is true if I provide a higher contemplation, a spiritual realization. And so this is one of the biggest mistakes we make in doing this work, is we think that the thing we're replacing it with is at the same level of reality as that which we are denying. No. What we replace it with is a higher contemplation, a spiritual realization. I think about it the way the shorthand that I use is that's not the spiritual truth of me, right? That's my shorthand. That's not the spiritual truth of me. Why? Because I'm made in the image and likeness of the divine. I'm an individualized expression of the one. And so if the one is unlimited, therefore I am unlimited. Do you see? That's the higher contemplation. That's the realization of truth. And then I say, I am unlimited in my workplace. I am unlimited in my ability to expand or be promoted or whatever, using the example of a glass ceiling. And so this higher contemplation, spiritual realization, an example here, he provides us with an example. I partake of the nature and bounty of the all good, and I am now surrounded by everything which makes life worthwhile. Do you see? It's moving to a different place. If we bring conditions into our spiritual mind treatment, we are limiting our spiritual mind treatment by the conditions that we can imagine based on the evidence of what we've seen. So we move to a higher reality, I cannot impress upon you strongly enough why we spend hours and hours and hours and hours on the nature of reality. This is why. If we continue to see things from our human experience, nothing will change. It's as we contemplate this higher reality, this deeper spiritual realization, that another way that I think of it, the way that I think of it is that we find a different place to stand. I'm no longer, taking the example of a glass ceiling, I'm no longer a woman pounding on the bottom of a glass ceiling trying to break through. I'm now the spiritual truth that knows that as an individualized expression, I can be and do whatever is mine to be and do, period. The condition of a glass ceiling is therefore no longer in my consciousness. Do you see? This is the difference, which is not, I'm going to break this glass ceiling. I can break this glass ceiling. Do you see? I'm still inside the human point of view, and I'm still talking about the condition. And the condition is continuing to be the limit. And so these are subtle but such important differences, and why we spend, again, so much time on the nature of reality and who we know ourselves to be. The universal medium at once changes its thought, right? And again, we remember we have continually defined thought as movement in consciousness. Movement in consciousness, actually in the glossary of the science of mind, under thought, movement in consciousness, right? So it doesn't have to be cerebral. It doesn't have to be words. It can be anything that is a movement in consciousness. And of course, it must immediately change its thought because its thought is deductive only. Oh, did I get to miss the deductive part? Did you get to have to do that, Tracy? Did you guys talk about deductive? Oh, we might do it again. Okay. And it says the universal medium says, yes, I am all these things in you, and immediately begins to work to bring up such conditions to pass. Okay, so we can just stop there. Ernest Holmes makes this big deal about inductive and deductive reasoning. And I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, who the blank cares, right? And so, so one of the things to remember, we forget this, that Ernest Holmes read the classics. He read philosophy, he read psychology, he read all the classic spiritual books, mental science writers. He read all of that. And he was involved in a larger conversation, not just the self-help, self-improvement, how to have a better life conversation, right? But really, what is in fact going on here? And so, okay, so we're not going to go on that track, but if you're really, 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 really interested in it, you should read Spinoza, okay? You should read Spinoza. He's always given this short shrift in the Western canon because they don't get him. So I'm just editing all that out. Okay, so we can go on a big long tangent, which we won't. So deductive and inductive. Okay, so the difference between deductive and inductive reasoning is quite simply, this is how I remember. It's probably not how they teach it in logic class or philosophy, but this is how I remember it, okay? Inductive reasoning is you are able to inquire into the truth, either of the original statements or of the conclusion. Deductive reasoning is A plus B equals C. My neighbor has this is the classic example. My neighbor is a white cat. My neighbor's cat is deaf. Therefore, all white cats are deaf. A plus B equals C. There's no inquiry into the truth of the conclusion. which is why we can, A, be individualized expressions of the divine, plus B, believe ourselves to be limited, equals C, our divine nature is limited. Because the universal medium can only deduce. It cannot inquire into the truth of the belief that we have that we are limited. Do you see? It can't inquire into the truth of that. My mother told me I could be anything I wanted to be. My father treated us as if we were an annoyance. That equals, well, something kind of messed up, doesn't it? It's a challenge, right? So my desire to be anything that I want to be has always had to push through the belief that I'm an annoyance. And that has played out. Do you see? Because the universal medium can't inquire into the truth of either one of these statements. It can only deduce what it looks like. This is how that plays out. Because what can it say? Yes, I am all these things to you. So we actually have A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus, we have our trauma and our belief and our childhood and what we learned as an adult and what we read about and now the spiritual, right? We have all of those things and it cannot inquire into it. Our conscious mind is the place that can inquire. Wait. Really? Am I always an annoyance? Okay, well, sometimes, yes, that would be true. But is that a state of my being? No, I don't think so. Do you see? The conscious mind can inquire into the truth. This is inductive reasoning in its like shorthand. It's the way that I think about it that helps me really understand that only conscious mind can do that, which is what allows us to change it, to inquire into it and go, wait, but that's not the spiritual truth. Do you see? So now if I add A plus B, A, my mother said I can do anything I want, I can do and be anything I want to be, and B, I'm an individualized expression of the one that has everything needed to be that, equals C. Wow, I've had an amazing life and done all kinds of amazing things. Do you see? Because I've inquired into the spiritual truth, and I've replaced the things that are not in alignment with spiritual truth with spiritual truth, with a higher truth. Not, my mother said I could be anything I want to be, and well, I'm just not annoying. I just affirm that I'm not annoying. Right? That's not going to cut it. I'm just going to annoy myself, let alone everybody else, right? And so that was so, okay, we're not going on that tangent. Okay, so here we go. So another italics. Whatever is held in consciousness until it becomes a part of the subjective side of thought tends to take place in the world of affairs. So one treatment that can so embody a shift into spiritual truth is enough. Sometimes it takes treatment after treatment after treatment after treatment after treatment to keep, I think of it as dripping, building that space inside consciousness, inside our consciousness that accepts that the spiritual truth is in fact true. And it's true for us, and it's true about this situation. It's a constant process of working to embody it. Sometimes I embody it. My spiritual mind treatments are like I'm just describing. Yes, I already know all this is true. And then my spiritual mind treatment, I feel like I'm juicing the seed. It's like fertilizing the seed, watering it, making sure it's getting what it needs, right? And it becomes plump and juicy, and nothing can stand in its way. So this work of having it become part of the subjective side of life is the quote unquote spiritual work we're doing. Sometimes I do treatment about something and then, well, I just forget to do the treatment. What does that mean? Either my desire has changed, or quite frankly, I've so subjectified it. I so believe that it's already true that I just forget to do the treatment. And then at some point, I'm usually surprised that it took place, right? Or I go past it and I go, wait, look what happened. Oh my God, look at what happened back there, right? And because I was so, because we so embody it, we barely realize that that it has happened out there because it's been so real in here. Does that make sense? Right? Now, you don't have to do this about everything, right? You only have to do about this, about the things that are important to you, or the things where it feels like you're hitting a brick wall, right? Some things are just unfolding beautifully. There's lots of areas of our lives that are unfolding beautifully, and we can, just allow them to be. But there's also places where it feels like maybe we're up against something, or quite frankly, the most useful time to use this is when you begin to see patterns in your life. Patterns about picturing. Oh, wait, this relationship looks suspiciously like the last one and the one before it and the one before it, right? Oh, wait, I'm in my fifth job in 5 years, and once again, I want to quit. Right? I mean, these are the kinds of things that's where it really becomes valuable, is to break the chain of the patterns that are producing a life that is not in alignment with either what we want or how we want our lives to be, or what we think life should be like. The reason that we do not demonstrate more easily is that the subjective state of our thought is too often neutralized by the objective state, though often this is an unconscious process. So just because we're using our conscious mind does not mean we're conscious of the fact that we're using our conscious mind. Those are those little whispers in the background that you can actually hear and you don't deny. The subjective state, it's so far back here, we don't necessarily hear it. We only see its result. But, we do a spiritual mind treatment about my life has more joy in it. And then we start going, well, that wasn't very nice what that person did. And, well, I really am afraid about how that's going to go. And can you believe they said that? Do you see we're chipping it away at the spiritual mind treatment we've just done about joy? We're just chipping away at it, chipping away at it, chipping away at it, with our unconscious use of our conscious mind. Which is why we say you choose, but we do often choose unconsciously. It's still a choice. All right, so we're going to stop there. And all of this is the encouraging message. What is encouraging about this? That's the question. What is encouraging about this? That's the question we'll ask. So we're going to say good morning to Ryan and see what's going on out there, and see what kind of questions and comments we have.
Well, good morning to you too, Dr. Petra. Good to have you back with us. And yes, this is an engaging conversation, so we'd love to hear from you. And just a quick couple housekeeping rules with that. For the folks here in the room, the ones I'm waving my hand to, yes, we got in the habit of waving back at me. This is great. You guys will be on the camera today. Those who are, hey, do I get any waves over here to my left? Yes. All right. Those folks will not be on camera. But feel free to raise your hand, and hopefully we have somebody, or you can volunteer yourself, just hand off the microphone to a friend who has their hand raised. And for those who are joining us via Zoom, you can go ahead and hit the raise your hand icon. It's located down below underneath the more or reactions button. And for those who are joining us all over the globe, we love to hear from you too on Facebook Live. So feel free to put your question or comment inside of the chat, and we can bring those into the room as well. And I always like to mention that we do keep the chats anonymous. That way we can continue to have a safe container for spiritual growth. So it looks like we have somebody here in the room, and then we'll just poll the online audience and see if we've got anybody on there as well.
Darlene, so much has has hit me. I could hardly barely sit still. And I just want to say that the joy in this for me is the reality to discover is accepting and giving myself the permission to ask the questions, to remove the fear, to discover. And that is so exciting to me because all of what you said, I can't even repeat what I felt, but I have the right, the birthright, the just the law of reality with the permission to discover and
Yes.
ask the question. And that is limitless.
Yes, right? I love that. Thank you to Arlene. Thank you. And I love that we could feel how it felt to you. And it's okay. Sometimes it is hard to put into words, and that's okay, right? So we have another comment here in the room. Should we go to the room, or do you have something there online, Ryan, before we stay here?
Let me just ask this question real quick, and then we can come
Okay.
back to you, Ross. So it says, say more about the unconscious use of the conscious mind. How does that neutralize our prayer?
Well, how it does it is sneakily and annoyingly. So let's see. Try to think of an example. Um, so I don't know. Let's see if example will work. My subjective state is I have a deep belief in my own health. I have always believed myself to be a workhorse, and I spend my entire life plugged in. People ask me, "How do you get everything done that you get done? Aren't you tired?" I'm like, "No, I'm like forever plugged in. I'm just plugged in, and I have a lot of joy in what I do, and so that's great. And I cannot heal a cold or a drip in my nose or a cough to save my life. I have healed some amazing things in my body. For whatever reason, I can't, I should not say that, right? I should stop. I'm not going to affirm that. Up until now, I've not successfully like really cut that off and nip that in the bud. And so my subjective state is that I'm a healthy person. I'm a workhorse. Nothing keeps me down. When something happens, I get a cough or a cold, what I've noticed, because it's been just a nightmare since COVID, how much this has been going on. And for those of you who've been around, right, you've listened to me cough unendingly now for months, which is almost completely gone. And so what I note, because I've been asking myself, what the hell is going on? I have what I can hear myself like right over here, not quite so quietly that it's back in my subjective mind, but I can hear myself right here, and it says, "Oh, it'll go away on its own. You don't need to do anything about it. Just push through." And then I go right on. So my unconscious use of my conscious mind doesn't I don't consciously say to myself, "Petra, you have a cough. You clearly need some time off. You need to do something about this. Have you gone to the doctor? Are you taking a break? And could you have somebody do spiritual mind treatment about this, please? Really getting back to your health and wholeness." No, I just go, "It's okay. It's going to take care of itself. I'm going to just push through." Do you see that's that little unconscious use of my conscious mind, which actually is disrupting my subjective belief that I'm a workhorse. But when we have to start moving here, I can do this for hours. I move stuff and people are going, "Oh, I don't want." I'm like, "I don't care. Got to do it again tomorrow? Okay, I don't care. Got to do it again tomorrow." Why? Because I have a subjective belief that I am a workhorse and that I have all the energy I will ever need, period, end of sentence. That's completely my subjective belief. Do you see what I'm saying? But then this thing happens with a cold or a cough, and I don't address it directly spiritually because I'm just kind of there's this thought that, well, it'll take care of itself, it'll go away, so that's the only example that I can think of immediately of how you unconsciously use our conscious mind to undermine a subjective belief. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Maybe, sort of. I can think of another example. I'll think about if it will help. All right, Ross, we'll come back to you.
Okay, Ross, I'm kind of finding humor in myself this morning, being curious as to what's going to come out of this thing.
Okay.
Over the last year, in this class and other classes, most of my very comfortable pet beliefs are gone. And that was not easy to get rid of those things. But it's replaced with something that made me a whole lot more comfortable because it matched the reality that I'm seeing around me. And so I started getting this belief that things are going to come easy until this one came up.
Yeah.
This is not easy. This kind of pisses me off because it's hard work. There's nothing straightforward about this. It's like relentlessly pursuing it. And there's this part that goes, it's unconscious. I don't even know it's happening, but I get to live with the result, and sometimes I really don't like it. Now, so it has this part. First of all, I have to decide what I want, which is challenging enough. And then I have to go to what's actually operating unconsciously with me that needs to come to the surface. Then what do I do with it once it comes to the surface? That's the challenge.
Yes, and Science of Mind says, if you're not manifesting what it is that you, think you want in your life, there may be something back there. Could be yours, could be that you're just unconsciously accepting race consciousness, but it's really not necessary to know what's back there. You just rewrite it. You just lay over top spiritual truth, and eventually the spiritual truth will simply rewrite it. It's really only interesting to know what's back there if you are associating it with a pattern of behavior or experience. And I think we spend altogether too much time thinking, oh, I have some unhealed belief, I have some unconscious thought back there standing in my way. No, it might be that we've never actually deliberately, consciously gone for it. And what's operating is simply the human law of averages. This many people have accidents, and we still believe that people have to die of something, and and it's our biological and cultural and familial belief systems that simply are running on autopilot. So you don't always have to have an unconscious belief become conscious. You can simply declare the truth. And what we know is that truth is more powerful than those unconscious beliefs. And so they must rewrite that, whatever that is. So this is the difference between what we do and what psychology does, or what you do in therapy. Now, that doesn't mean therapy isn't I've been in therapy on and off since I was 13, so I'm a huge believer in therapy because I'm interested in the patterns. And sometimes the unconscious beliefs are not obvious. And so the therapy does help, not only what happened, but also what were the beliefs that I formed around what happened. Because what happened is in the past. The only thing that really matters is that the beliefs are still present. That's all that matters, right?
Am I understanding this? Figure out what it is you want to experience and go for it.
Yes. And when you do it from a spiritual point of view, no human truth is more powerful than the spiritual truth, because the spiritual truth is the way the entire universe is operating. So when we raise ourselves into the level of the spiritual truth, we're in alignment. When people say, oh, spirit is going to handle it for me, well, that's actually sloppy metaphysics, but doesn't matter, right? We're in alignment with it, and the whole thing is going. And yes, and if we are doing that, it's gonna, if you think about a river, it's gonna just carve right over the nonsense that has been laid down by our humanness. And so yes.
So if I'm understanding, I'm liking this more and more.
This is the encouraging message. See, we're finding the encouraging message.
So get clear with what I want to experience, and then set it in motion.
Yes.
Because there's this part of reality that says, I'm mindless. I'm just going to go for it because
Yes.
the city wants it, and now go for it.
Yes. What is it? What he gave it language. Yes. The universal medium. Realize that he doesn't say God, and it doesn't say spirit. It says the universal medium, which is the law that if we personify the law, let's remember it's not a person, it's not an entity, but if we personify it, yes, I am all these things in you. That's all it can say is yes, right? Because it reasons deductively. It cannot inquire into what you're saying as truth. It can only say yes. And we can say all kinds of faulty things to ourselves. I'm not good enough and I don't know and no, and blah, blah, blah. And oh gosh, I just had an experience just this last week and man, I went back to, I must have been 6 in my consciousness. I went right back to, nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. I'm going to eat worms. So on top of my mind, because I'm working with my 4-year-old, that she's like immediately pouts and you don't love me anymore. I'm like, well, let me tell you what you do. You sing this song. Of course, she sang it and all she could do was laugh. It was great because she wasn't really hurt. She just didn't get what she wanted. Right. But I watched myself plummet right into that, like in it really fast. I got really sad and it's just me and it's blah, 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 right? And that's my unconscious use of my conscious mind. Good enough, I've done enough work that the subjective state doesn't believe it, right? And begins to nudge back up. Wait, is that really the truth? Oh, wait, I can inquire. Is that really the truth? Is that really the truth? No, it's not, right? But that's the work that I did all week to sort of climb back out of that space I had fallen into. And it is annoyingly repetitive. And this is, so my son said something, the most amazing thing to me the other day, and I was like, there, in a nutshell. I think I've been trying to say that for years. And he said, Mom, I've learned something really important. Motivation isn't enough. It's about the discipline. And I was like, you get 3 gold stars. Maybe you get 5 for that one. Because it is ultimate, we're motivated to begin to change our life because we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're sick and tired of being unhappy. We're sick and tired of maybe not understanding. We're just tired of the BS from our previous tradition. We're tired. We're just wanting something new, right? So that begins to move us. That's the motivation. But eventually motivation does run out because it is work. Now, it doesn't have to be hard. Well, I believe in sustained effort. Yes, it's the discipline of it, right? And it may require some sweat. I mean, I'm a mountain climber, a hiker. I sweat and and I can get sore and whatever, but I'm not struggling because I'm not resisting that when you climb the mountain, you sweat. So I like the term sustained effort and to keep coming back to it and coming back to it and coming back to it and coming back to it. And the discipline is what rewrites the synaptic pathways in our brain, right? And any basic neuroscience will teach us that. And you don't have to you don't have to pay too much attention to the thought you don't want to have. They have shown that it atrophies on its own by lack of use. Because we are using our disciplined mind to say, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go here. No, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. And yes, when we first start doing that, it can be tiring. Just like the first time you learn anything, right? And it gets a little tiring because you're not used to it yet. Your fingers don't do the piano yet, or your body doesn't yet move in that way, or whatever it is. But eventually it becomes, then we're building new habits. And then that becomes the habit that we're actually running on. So discipline is a word we really have to make friends with. And I've spent a lifetime really exploring the value of discipline. But when he said that, and that's, I think, we could also say, and check me if you think this is not right, but I think you could also say intention only takes you so far, right? Then it's about the discipline of staying committed to that intention, the discipline of the doing, the discipline of the being, the discipline of the thought process in alignment with that intention. So motivation and intention sort of aim us in a direction, start the process rolling, but then there is the discipline. And so every time we feel like we're victimized by something in our lives, we get to say, wait, but I choose joy. Oh, that's a discipline. It's a discipline not to keep getting sucked down that road. It's a discipline to say, I'm not going to try to figure it out. I'm going to let spirit unfold it all. I'm going to just trust. And that's a discipline over and over and over again, to be in that discipline. I'm going to allow it to unfold, and I'm going to just love whatever it is. That's a discipline, right? And so that to me. And so when I hold it as sustained effort, it doesn't feel as hard because I'm not doing this, right? That feels hard when I'm doing this. When it feels hard and I'm doing that, I feel like my forehead is getting bloody. I'm bloody against the wall. Could you just stop? Just stop. No, stop. That's not it. But I think more the sustained effort of, a beautiful trek in the mountains, or, it doesn't even have to be mountain climbing. It can just be through the valleys, or a beautiful walk around White Rock Lake, 10 miles. I mean, that's sustained effort. Oh, please, I see that you have the microphone.
Keenan,
Hi, Keith.
so much of this conversation is focused on creating change at the individual level. But yet I think most of the experiences that a person could wish to have in life requires agreeable circumstances and willing participants, outside participants in most cases. So what does science of mind say about creating the change in the macro to the universal body, to the universal intent? Because so much of that is necessary for these experiences that we wish to have to come about. We can change ourselves, we can change our own thinking, do all that stuff, but what's the use of it if we need the world to agree with our state of mind to create these experiences that we want to have?
Well, science of mind would, so I would, two things. The way in which you framed the question, science of mind would not agree. That you can raise yourself above the conditions, and as long as we say the conditions limit us, they limit us, right? So I am a woman who's in a relationship with a woman as a woman minister in a conservative state. There are a lot of people who say that's impossible. And yet here I am. Because I don't allow the belief that that's not acceptable, which actually resided at the heart of my family. I did not let the condition, I did not require willing participation from anybody.
Your spouse. That's the point that I'm saying, not the world agrees, but
Oh, that's what I heard you say. The world agrees.
and your spouse, you're in a relationship with your spouse. She's the one that you're participating with. For that to exist, her participation is required. That's what I'm.
Well, yeah. Okay, well, you talked about universal and the world and the.
But what I'm saying is universal is you know, your spouse is part of that universal whole that is outside of yourself.
Of course.
And I'm speaking to creating the changes that are outside of yourself, because most of this is focused on our internal change.
An example, specific example of the kind of
You
change
gave
you're talking
you
about.
gave the perfect example just in your own situation, because your spouse is an outside participating party. The universe, at one point, you were foreign to each other. So
Okay, so wait, no, don't use my example. So are we specifically talking about about relationships? Is that what
it,
we're talking about?
it could be a relationship. It could be a job opportunity. You know, it doesn't have to be just a relationship with a person. That is one that I think all people.
Okay, so give me a specific example from your life where you feel as though the outside participant has limited you.
um for example, like in my life, I'm pursuing a career in finance as someone that's a little bit older than people that typically get into this field. And so the type of things that I am um pursuing, we could say limiting factors are like, you know, age and cultural background and just different things of that nature, right? Though that's the thing that I can change, right?
Right?
But at the same time, the job that I want has to be there for me to have it.
You create it. You just rearrange the molecules of the universe to bring about the job that is the reflection that allows you to be who you are. Right? So for instance, so when I was in ministerial school, I had to have a job to pay for being in ministerial school and all my bills. Right? So I decided I wanted a 9-to-5 job because I went to school 4 nights a week and all weekend. And so I got an office manager job in a securities and investment banking firm, of which I have zero interest, but I'm a really good organizer. And for whatever reason, they hired me. Okay, come to find out later, they hired me because they had never had a single employee longer than 6 months. Why? Because there were 3 partners in this investment banking firm. I worked for the one partner who was sane. The other partner was never there. And the third partner was, to put it succinctly, a misogynistic, unpleasant human being. And he ran everybody off. Mostly, they only hired women in the office, and he ran them off one after another. And I found myself in the office of my boss, crying, so mad. You cannot speak to me that way. I will not stand for it. And then, there, it'll be all right. It's just, and I thought, no, this is not okay with me. And I came within a hair's breadth of quitting. And then I thought, wait. If this shit really works, it works. So this man, I watched how he treated his wife, his daughter, and every other woman in the office. And it was awful. And so every day when he came in, I put a flame on his forehead because I couldn't look him in the eye because it would make me so mad. I put a flame on his forehead and I said through gritted teeth, you are a child of God. You have the right to blankety blank your life in any way you can, but I see you as a child of God. Now, the first few weeks I did that through gritted teeth. And I did not know whether I was going to be able to keep that job. Now, mind you, it's a securities and investment banking firm. They were paying me a pretty penny. And I was doing a good job. Meanwhile, one after another, other staff people were going. A few months went by, and I realized it was less difficult to see him as a child of God. I no longer was doing it through gritted teeth. And I began to not only imagine the flame in his forehead, I imagined the flame in his heart. And every time he loomed over my desk and spoke to me, and whatever he did, I just focused on how I saw him, and I tried to keep a civil tongue in my head. I was there 2.5 years. I got 2 raises. They gave me a party when we left, and that man kissed me on the cheek and said, I have no idea what we're going to do without you.
Wow.
I changed the condition of that office, and slowly but surely I could see that things were changing for other people, although not as much as it had for me, because I chose not to be limited by him, his behavior, the way and whether or not he treated me well or anything. I never spoke to him about it. I never had a conversation. Actually, my boss advised against it. He said, well, if you really don't want to get fired, you should just not say anything, right? And so this is where we make the mistake of giving power to the things outside of ourselves. It is not your age. It's not the economy. It's not the job. It's not who you are or where you came from, right? And so you are literally rearranging the molecules of the universe. And while you're doing that, you are making space for the next person who's like you, who wants to have that kind of an experience. And each time that happens, you're carving a whole different belief system into the consciousness of humanity, that people of your age can be doing what you're doing, look like you, be like you, and have an amazing career and do an amazing thing. And you've just opened the door for people who don't have the ability to consciously break the barriers of the limitation, the false limitation of our humanness. And you're standing in a place that says, no, this is not the truth of me. And when we do that, we're shifting consciousness as a whole. And we're rewriting the entire consciousness of humanity that says, no, these are no longer the boxes or limitations that we will allow for anybody. I don't care whether it's sex or age or color or what you want to do or what you look like or what your background is. No, because we are all individualized expressions of the one. We all have access to this same truth. It takes sustained effort. The more entrenched the old beliefs are,